Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullas Show. Today, I have with me Justin Barnes. Now, for over 11 years, Justin has been the creative lead of Versus, shaping its rise as a sought-after and influential award-winning creative studio. Under his leadership, Versus has continually pushed the boundaries of creativity and production, working with today's most influential brands and agencies. And we'll have maybe talk about a few of those. Justin's vision for ownable originality, and we're going to find out what that really means, and ensures Versus work remains groundbreaking and defines culture, taking inspiration from the brand's DNA instead of just following external trends. Known for bold and brave creative, and with Emmys, Clios, Lions, and a slew of other industry top awards, he has become an industry leader in innovative, visually rich, cross-platform storytelling. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to chat.
So, Justin, you're what we call a creative and also a content producer, and but I'm always intrigued by what was the inspiration, when you were younger and you went and did, a fine arts and design degree at Brooklyn College. Where did you start your creative journey? Was there any inspiration? Was it just there, straight out of the oven when you were born? How did it all start for you?
Yeah, good question. I grew up a skateboarder, skating here in New York. And that was just my love, my passion. And I took it pretty far. So I became sponsored by a lot of companies and then basically was paid to just kind of travel around the world skateboarding,
Wow.
which was amazing. Great way to live, but when you're 18 to 26 or 8. And then in that time, I remember I bought like an old Super 8 camera and I'd start shooting some Super 8 film, and then getting it developed and transferred. And I taught myself like iMovie, then I taught myself Final Cut Pro just to sort of put the trips together.
Mm.
And I started to like really fall in love with just like editing and then making these short films about like all the trips we were on with all my friends and skateboarding and just telling stories in like a unique way. Uh, so I started to like that more than skateboarding, to be honest. Like going out and like filming and then like making these videos. Then I taught myself After Effects because I wanted to learn how to do some titles and do some cleanup work and some visual effects on that. And then it just took over my life. I sort of stopped skateboarding in that way and started just focusing more on just learning design and After Effects and editing and 3D. I taught myself Maya and all these other programs just
Mm.
because I was so obsessed with it and loved it so much, which led to an internship, which led to working at big studios and then opening other studios and then eventually opening up Versus 11 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So you went to Brooklyn College. Was that prior to you becoming a skateboarding star who traveled the world, or when was that?
It was in the middle of it. So I wanted to go to college. I started taking some art classes at Brooklyn College to get like a fine arts degree. I was really studying a lot of like printmaking and bookbinding of all things. I was taking some more digital art classes as well. And then just, had a teacher that really inspired me to take that further. So for me, college was just about, you know, just going because I had some time. I wanted to try it and explore it, but it wasn't a means to sort of get a degree or to get an education and go out and find a job. It was just like a byproduct of those things, to be honest. I was just doing things my own way at Brooklyn College and studying things I liked and was interested in and making art and studying digital art just alongside skateboarding, alongside learning everything else.
So it's almost more organic rather than formal.
Yeah, exactly. There's no need for me to ever have gone to college, but I did, and I'm sort of grateful for the experience, probably not so grateful for the student loans, but um, it's all part of the story, so it got me to here. So no regrets.
Yeah, because it's interesting, isn't it, that sometimes you start off, a lot of us go and do a formal degree. I started doing an accounting degree, hated it, changed after 1 year, and then started a teaching degree. And then I'd actually taught for 5 or 6 years and realized I hated it, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you're going to like until you actually do it.
Yep.
So, um, but that degree opened a door and got me hired into the technology industry back in the 1980s. So um, sometimes I think planning's overrated and randomness needs to be embraced a lot more, and chaos.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's a very expensive and inefficient way to figure out what you like, but sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's just a ticket to, it's an entry ticket, right?
Yeah.
And it comes down to your own creativity and what you're curious about. So, so you've learned accidentally by actually recording your own skateboarding journeys around the world, and then you went and helped agencies. So you've been doing Versus now for over 11 years. How did that start? Was it something you did together with someone else, or just you said, "I'm going to do this because I'm fascinated by this particular niche," creating, doing creative work for companies? How did Versus happen?
Yeah. So, when moving from an internship, I started working at all the large studios here in New York City. um, and just learning and kind of seeing how the studios worked and just working on really huge projects. I helped launch a studio through like an edit house and sort of got a feel for what that was like. But during the whole time, I felt like there was a better way to be doing this. I felt like there's a smarter way to be a creative studio that was really production focused, to work directly with brands, to work with agencies, to work with entertainment partners, and to just bring a kind of different way of thinking to it. So when I left the last place before I was at Versus, the my thinking was, look, I'm gonna start a studio. It's called Versus because we're gonna be versus the traditional model of like a creative
Okay.
studio, a production studio. So
Mhm.
the name, as we say at Versus, like this is a name, that we say to ourselves, to our clients, and to the work that we're doing. Like we're not gonna be in the like traditional, we're not gonna work in the same way.
Right.
So Versus was born from that, and I started it with Samantha Louise, who's my wife. And I met her at a studio that I was running the creative side of. She was running the business and the operations side of that. And I said, like, look, I have this idea. You can run the business. You run the business side. I'll run the creative side, and we'll grow from here. And then we grew quickly, to be honest. And we brought on our current partner, Rob Myers, who we have here 2 years later after we were growing to a scale where we just couldn't do it ourselves anymore. And then
Mm.
from then, it's been growing exponentially. But, always keeping that sort of core idea that we're just really versus, what everyone else is doing out there.
Right. So let's wind back to the reason you said I can do this better. That quite often happens once you're working within a corporation or a business. You look at it and going, I can do this. What were the problems you saw that you could do better? What did you observe that led to you starting Versus?
Yeah, a lot of studios are sort of focused on just maybe one discipline or one medium. Like an animation studio, any idea they have is like, oh, let's animate it. Or a live action studio is just going to rep a bunch of directors and try and just do the live action work. Or like CG or 3D character studios, or just creative studios who don't have production capabilities will have ideas but no ways to get them done. So we were looking at it more holistically. We were going to focus on the idea rather than sort of the execution, and then build all of these tools. So we would be amazing at live action, amazing at animation, amazing at edit and motion graphics, all of these different things that when you bring them together, they create really unique work, really original work.
Mm,
It's tough for a lot of studios to pull off because, clients want to see something more niche. But for us, what's niche about us is just original work and original thinking.
right,
We have all these tools to bring that together to make it happen. And that was the vision for the studio from the very beginning. And it took a while for people to understand us. But once they did, they found that like this is the better way and the right way to sort of approach these creative problems to solve.
right. So that's a big challenge actually to be all things to all people in terms of the idea is great and originality is good, but you're dealing into a whole range of different types of media. And um, but I love the originality thing. I'm just that I'm thinking, reflecting on that. Sort of like every carpenter sees every problem as a nail, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
and for me, how did you manage? Did you focus on one thing then expand? In other words, did you create what we'd say in the, one of the key phrases is a minimal viable product or a process? How did you go from do from doing take an idea to do everything with it from animation to live action and so on. That must have been quite a challenge.
It was, we're excited about all of it. So it's exciting for us to bring all that together. But when we're talking to clients originally, it did feel like there was a need for brands and for agencies, and for networks to sort of package things up together. So that helped rather than going to one place for an idea, then another place to sort of get it executed from a live action, then to an animation. It just felt like the idea was just becoming a little bit watered down kind of for each step. So when we would approach them and say, look, we can do all this, we can bring it all together. There's obviously cost efficiencies and all these other things, but more importantly, there's just this communication and transparency of the idea from start to finish that just grows bigger. It doesn't become less impactful, I guess, throughout the way. So they were excited about that. Of course, brands, agencies, they kind of lead with the budget. So seeing that we can be a little bit more cost effective was maybe a little bit higher up on their list and sort of make sure the idea was great. But we'd pitch it as both. And it caught on. It caught on to like, a lot of agencies, a lot of brands. And we just started building from there. And we wouldn't win all the work, but we would win the work that was right for us.
Right. So what's your ideal customer profile then in terms of, is it small, medium, large enterprise, or is it just the type of work they want done? Is that more important?
I think it's someone looking to do something unique, something original, to sort of, challenge themselves, challenge what their brand is or what their brand could be, and coming to a studio that has everything here and letting us be a good partner and just showing them what's possible. That's like the ideal client for us.
Mm.
Uh, and then having a ton of money also doesn't hurt. That's always a good thing.
And,
But
and following that, those that actually pay their bills as well. That's actually really important.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, so it's different. Every client, every project, everything is different for us here, and that's by design. We're not trying to be this one-stop shop for everybody. We're trying to just work with clients who understand that, like, this. There's a really powerful creative process at work here, and there's tools that we've put together, like from all these executional tools, from animation to live action to everything on a production side, that can like contribute to this and just elevate absolutely everything as we go along the process.
Right. So from an original idea, it sounds like you're actually trying to create something that stands out, that's original, and also maybe true to the storytelling DNA of the company you're working for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then through the lens of verses, right? We're a very New York City company, very bold, and we're very just sort of like loud. So we want to bring brands kind of into that world.
Mm. So marketing then is about standing out and actually word of mouth. Is that more how it works for you rather than spending money on Facebook ads or Meta ads, as they call them now?
Yeah, we have like a great sales team and business development team, but like a lot's just building on the reputation that we have, and that's sort of how we get work. And
Mm.
we're not the kind of studio that sits around and just waits for projects to come in. We're going out, we're pitching ideas, we're making phone calls and saying, look, we're working with client A and client B. What if we did something together? We're chasing work and making the work to go chase as well.
Right. So the other question I have, which I think I know the answer for already, but I'm going to ask it, is going from being an ordinary person working for an ordinary company and crossing the threshold using a hero's journey analogy. Was that easy for you to cross that threshold? Because a lot of people sort of look, I really have this idea, and they go, oh, I don't want to leave the safe job. And they approach and they then retreat. How was it for you to do that? Or did it just feel like the right thing and it was just an easy crossing that threshold?
It felt like the right thing. We learned a lot along the way, made a lot of mistakes that we're grateful for, to be honest. You get in, you start a creative studio because you want to just do more creative work, and then it turns out you're just doing business stuff all day long, and you're
Mm.
like, oh, okay, I guess this is not what I had pictured. Um, yeah, I mean, it's been a wild journey. But I think we've just, been brave along the whole way. Like we'll never go back. This
Mm.
is especially for me, for Samantha, for Rob, owning a company and being in charge of our own sort of destiny and the work that we're doing is exactly where we want to be and need to be.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're just following your bliss, really, as Joseph Campbell said. And I'm really intrigued by, business plans and big plans. And then, it's like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until they get hit in the face. And did you write a business plan?
We did. Yeah, we started writing business plans and then changing them and then rewriting them and trying to like understand our positioning and questioning a little bit of what we were doing along the way, but never questioning the motives for why we were doing it. To be honest, I think we'll take big swings and we're not afraid of anything. And I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what it takes. Like we have failed and lost millions of dollars, and then we've won and done the same. So for us, it's all sort of part of this crazy journey, and we've learned to love the peaks and the valleys
Mm.
together.
Yeah.
It's tough to say because owning a business, running a business, it's the best day of your life followed by the worst, and then just
Mm.
repeat. But when you back up far enough and kind of just look at what you've done, you got to kind of keep that perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all just got to embrace the fact that it's gonna rise and fall. It's gonna be tough days, bad weeks, bad months, and good ones. And sort of embrace the pain as well as the joy, I suppose, and just accept that it's the human condition. And
It really is. Yeah, I mean, everyone wants stability, but that stability is what's holding you back from greatness. So
mm,
don't love stability too much.
no, well, stability can be rather boring, frankly, right? It's like who wants Groundhog Day every day, right? That's why we, go on holidays, and that's why we start businesses because we need some light and shade. We need some winter and summer. And I'm sure you've had all of that.
Yeah, weekly today even.
So you walk into the office and go, what the fuck is going to happen today? Okay, look.
Oh my God, yeah. It's just like, oh, it's one of those days. Okay, let me get ready for that.
You put your big boy's pants on and just walk in and
Yeah.
just deal with
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And you deal with it and you take it and you trust the people that you've hired around you and and you move on.
Yeah. So now the elephant in the room, which is affecting creativity and productivity and even sometimes seen as an existential threat to humanity, is AI.
Mhm.
So I've been intrigued by there's two elements to it that we had a quick chat about before we hit record here. Number one, AI's impact on creativity and also AI's impact on productivity. So I'd be really interested in your thoughts and really when did you start using AI and what has been the impact and for you and the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's we've been using AI tools, if you could call it that, for as long as they've been around for the last 3, 4 years.
Mm,
But just this quick explosion of generative AI, I think is just something that I couldn't have ever imagined. I don't think anyone could have, to be
no.
honest. And yeah, it is scary for a lot of artists, for a lot of filmmakers, for a lot of creatives. We look at it as both ways. We're scared of sort of what it could do to the industry that we love and that we've helped build, but we're also just excited about just the sheer potential of what it can do for the work that we're creating. It's this really interesting place to be like so scared and so in love with something at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, because it's gonna go one way or the other. I think I think what scares us about it is maybe less less the generative AI itself and more of brands and commercial art for commerce sort of type work just becoming saying it's good enough. Like if everyone starts to become complacent and brands are like, you know what, this is fine. I don't want to pay any more money for anything.
Mm,
Then I think we're in trouble. Like if we all race to the bottom And then all the work sort of becomes just type in a prompt that's good enough, let it go. And it becomes this, quantity over quality mindset. Then I think just the creative world's in trouble anyway. We're already sort of steering in that direction even without AI. But again, within that, there of course is like opportunity to really stand out. And I think that in the hands of really experienced artists who understand tools like Photoshop and After Effects and Flame and 3D and Maya and all these like really powerful tools that you take the AI and you manipulate it and you cut and you sew and you put it back together in your own vision, then you're going to start to see some really incredible work from the people who just know how to use it in the right way. And you're
Yeah.
going to see terrible work from someone on LinkedIn who has like 30 different descriptions of who they are, AI enthusiasts, all these crazy like AI consultants just typing in prompts and making films that are just garbage and no one cares about. Like that's
Mm.
the bottom will fall here and the top will rise and the middle is going to be a scary place.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched a little bit of your Adobe presentation, which was showing your process in terms of using AI to create like an apple, two hero shots you were talking about, the apple on the tree and then the cut apple for the drink brand that you're working with.
Mhm.
And you showed some of which is the fun part of AI and also the bad part of AI is basically like a hand coming in and it's wearing an industrial glove to pick up an apple when you're trying to sell this, organic drink. And so we have this like randomness. So the bottleneck and just watching that, that is one of both the joys and the frustrations of working with AI, isn't it? So
Yeah.
because the bottleneck for you and also the addition what you bring is professionalism and also reviewing, because the bottleneck for you is actually reviewing and editing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. AI is insanely unpredictable. It's terrible, to be honest. Everyone's saying this is amazing, and they're right. This is crazy. This is great. But for like client-facing work, unless you're like someone really skilled to just kind of fix it at every stage along the process, you're just not going to get something that's great. And more importantly, you're not going to get something that's your vision. Like there's this point where AI starts to control the vision of where it's going, and then maybe like a bad creative will sit back and just let the AI drive. Good creatives are going to always drive and just force AI, like make AI your bitch, is like we've been saying. Uh,
I like
so,
that.
so it's just like, and then that's exactly how we're using it. It's this tool, it's this thing that we're just like whipping into shape and getting what we want and just moving on and then continually doing the great work that we are.
Mm,
But on the bottleneck side, yeah, I mean, it's awesome for ideation. It's awesome for just getting ideas out quickly and pitching and showing clients the possibilities of work. Um, on that side of it's amazing. And then as we continue to see it evolve, we'll see how much it can play a role in actual client facing and consumer facing work.
yeah. You mentioned a couple of things there which I love, which is AI using AI as an ideation tool. And I think the challenge for any creatives is that we all get stuck in our own frameworks and history, and we become a little bit calcified over decades as we work and create. And what I love about AI is it'll toss up ideas that you hadn't even considered, or it's the actual mixture of ideas you hadn't considered because it's one an idea generator, and also there's a joy in the randomness of it as well. So
Yeah.
do you use it a lot to actually just create ideas?
We use it a lot to visualize our ideas, and then
Okay.
from that, we'll do something weird and crazy, and then we'll maybe chase that down a rabbit hole.
Hmm.
Um, but what's great, like in a cost-effective way, like when we're working on longer form content or these big things, like before we go out and shoot anything, we're able to like try and test to see if it's going to work. Is it going to feel right? So like the fact that we're able to kind of, you know, do all this upfront and then go out and shoot what we want, knowing what we've already seen. I mean, it's saving us tons of money, tons of time. And it's just making the creative process just a little bit more enjoyable rather than just like trying things and fixing it in the back end. We're like kind of pushing that to the front now,
Yeah.
the process. So it's cool in that way. And then from that, to be honest, like, AI will throw out something a little weird and interesting, and you're like, huh, and it'll get you thinking in different ways.
Mm.
Um, and then you're able to see if this is viable or not.
Yeah. So in other words, you can accelerate the draft so you actually can find something, some magic amongst all that noise, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, look, there's no one button push to make the great creative work. This is more about just like ideating, figuring things out, getting it out of your head, showing the client what you're thinking, which has always been a challenge for all this creative industry is like getting the client to see what you're seeing, and then buying into that idea and then letting you take and run with it. So for AI, it's just so helpful for that. I mean, it's
Mm,
a game
yeah,
changer.
exactly. The other thing, I interviewed Nick Bostrom, the polymath out of Oxford University. He wrote two books. One's called Superintelligence, and also he had released a new book called Deep Utopia. One's about the dystopian view, and the other one was about the utopian view. And really interesting talking to him in terms of you know existential threat to purpose, which is one of the things like you can just, and you mentioned it before, in that you can hand the keys to the AI and stand back and let it do all the work, which means that you look at that creation, you're going, why am I even here as a creator? And so that's the existential crisis. On the other hand, making AI your bitch, which I love that phrase, and I might steal it and use it one day in a blog post, um, or just use it and apply it across a general idea. But the reality is that if you make it your bitch, actually, what's really cool is that uh, it just can amplify your creativity, can't it?
Yeah, 100%. And your execution and all, yeah, all that across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, you're right on both counts. Like there's the scary part where people are saying like, well, AI just can do it for you. And then there's the creatives who are going to say, no, I have a vision and there's a reason for this. There's a soul to this idea and the work that we're going to create. And AI is just going to be another tool that we use to realize that, to realize my vision or our collective vision.
Yeah. So, yeah, and that comes to the next point, is you're trying to do something original, which is basically again trying to DNA and story of the brand you're working for. In other words, not just following a trend, as you mentioned in your intro. And Yuval Harari, the historian, Israeli historian who wrote the book *Sapien*, he's really worried about AI's impact on human storytelling. And this is part of what I suppose you as a creator are trying to reveal. You're trying to tell a story. And the most powerful marketing quite often is a well-told story, which is really human and gets to the core and touches hearts. So how do you deal with storytelling? How do you actually unearth that within the brand as part of your process?
Wow, great question. Yeah, I mean, it's different for sort of the objective if you're trying to sell a product or you're trying to create awareness for a company or you're just trying to, um, build a brand and just build this, this cultural moment around like a brand, for instance. But I think that if you try to understand why the brand exists, what their origin story is, why they're out in the market, why they're making a difference, and then you just kind of tap into the human emotion, I think, of why someone would want to believe in that brand and be a part of it and be a part of their purpose. Then you just start to connect the dots in interesting ways, and then start bringing in people who align with that thinking, be it influencers or celebrities or other brands or just cultural moments, and you start looking at things and putting them together in interesting ways, then I think you can create really amazing stories that are very different.
Yeah.
It's not about just sort of telling how Nike was, you know, developed and then someone made this logo for no money and like all these. It's more about like why is Nike this huge cultural brand? What do people see in it? How can we extract that? And then how can we tell that story in a different way through a very different lens and then
Mm.
start figuring it there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you do your last presentation or you do your draft, you come in and do a pitch, which is what you do, isn't it? You go in and do a pitch. Um, and I suppose you go back and you have a look at, you're trying to unearth the DNA of the brand you're working for and the product. When, so just in reflecting on that, your job, I suppose, is to try and get the leader of the project on the client side watching what you've done and going, Justin, you've nailed it. You know us. Is that what
Yeah.
you're aiming for?
I think that yeah, well, you want to show that you know them, and you want to show that you can scare them with ideas that they haven't thought about all at the same time. You
Yeah.
want them to feel like a little uncomfortable, but excited about the possibility. I think you always want a brand to sort of rein you back than you do say push it further.
Mm,
Um, you can come in with a safe idea, and maybe that's good alongside of something a little bit crazier.
mm,
And then something just maybe even more extreme that again just like pushes things in a direction they haven't thought of yet.
yeah.
It can
So
backfire, but
you can, exactly. Yeah, some films bomb, some creativity bombs. Sometimes it just takes off. And, uh, I think the latest movie, what's it, Metropolis or something, I'm trying to think of the name of it, that's just released. He spent 120 million of his own dollars. Megalopolis, that's it.
yep.
Yeah. I think it's bombed, but sometimes his movies become a cult a year or two later. So,
It's a great point. Or then you take that and compare it to A24's model of just making these amazing cultural movies for a couple $1 million that just connect with the audience on this way that that shows that you don't need a ton of money to have to do that.
no. Well, I've seen a lot of startups raise $1 billion and then absolutely bomb,
Yeah.
or get bought out and then start again. Mustafa Suleyman, okay, just got taken over after $1.6 billion of capital raising and got subsumed back into, I think it's Microsoft. So money does not actually guarantee success, does it?
It absolutely does not. It helps with big ideas, but I think the idea at its core, if it requires millions of dollars, it's probably not the greatest idea.
All right, let's lean into the next one before we wrap it up. And so AI and creativity, we had a good chat about that and love your phrase. And what about AI and productivity? How's it helped you actually scale your humanity and creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously where AI is shining. It's just sort of helping us. Like in that Apple example, that's work that could have taken 3 days that we did in an afternoon. So obviously it's helping become more efficient on that side. Um, and that's done by an artist who would normally also be doing that 3 days of work. So it's not replacing anybody, it's just speeding up the process a little bit.
Mm,
Um, we're finding ways to use it outside of like the generative AI and the creative space that kind of help us on the bookkeeping side and just running a business. And we're a smaller side of the business, so being able to sort of find efficiencies in that is obviously huge and just saving us money on just the back end of things. Um, but there's a lot of noise out there. It's tough. Everyone's got an AI solution for everything these days. So we're finding our way just like everyone else, to be honest.
yeah. So that raises another question. How do you deal with all the complexity and velocity of AI? Because like you said, there's just so many tools, they're all coming on the market. And so how do you keep up with that? Because everyone promises their tools does it faster, better,
Yep.
cheaper. Um,
Yeah.
how do you keep up with those trends, the AI trends and tools that you use?
I think you don't. I think you step back and understand what we're here to do, and that's to make great work, to bring ideas to life. And then when you have that idea, you start looking at what tools could help you do that. I think
Mm,
if you start becoming one of these LinkedIn AI consultant type people who's like trying to keep up with every new little thing coming out, it's like, for what's the purpose of that? Like, are you trying to you know, find the cheapest, most race to the bottom way to get something done? Or are you just like, are are you looking at what you have to do as a creative and as an artist and just maybe saying like, I have the tools that I normally use. I could try this on this one. I could try this on that, see what's working out, and
yeah,
just not get overwhelmed and just all the noise and all the hype because it's just that. It's a lot of hype. And
yeah.
to be honest, oh bullshit. A lot of it is just terrible.
Mm.
And a few things are good and progressing faster than others. And you use it for what you need, and then you kind of move on.
Mm. So the challenge also for you would be, okay, I still need to make money. So even though I want to make it perfect, the tension between getting stuff done and perfect, how do you manage that?
Yeah, great question. Well, we'll always go to perfect. So I think we will use AI to the point where we need it to, and then we'll just do things like we've always done on top of that,
Mm.
to make things perfect. For
Yeah.
now, yeah, as it evolves, we'll see like if they can start doing things that are up to our standards, but it's not right now. At least out of the box, it's not.
Right.
I don't think it ever will be, to be honest. At least for the good studio standards, it would be silly to type in a prompt and just think that's a film in any way.
Mm. Yeah. So you get to a point where you're going, this is actually, we've nailed it. Is that when you go, we're going to stop now and show the client? When does
Yeah,
that happen?
yeah, process along the way, showing them work in progress. We love bringing clients into to this collaborative process. It's just that much better for the work. So we'll show them along the way, of course, what we're doing, but we're trying to make the best work possible at all times, and we
Yeah.
have the teams and we have the time, and hopefully the client has the budget, and we'll get there.
Yeah. So one couple of final questions. The last one's going to be what brings you deep joy and what would you do for the rest of your life if you actually had all the money in the world? What would you do every day? That's the last question. So
Okay.
I'll let you reflect on that. But the other one is, what are some of the big lessons you learn as running a business in a fast-moving technology world with high velocity change? What has been your biggest challenges that you've had to deal with along the way in the 11 years you've been running Versus?
Yeah, I think just not losing sight of the vision and the reason why you're here, I think has been the most important thing for us. And then just building around that and outside of that and bringing in the right people to help you do that. One thing that, looking back that I wish I had done more of, is just starting to bring people on and looking to them to do the things that I couldn't do earlier on in the process. When you're running a business like Versus, you're wearing a lot of different hats. You're trying to do everything yourself. Like Samantha, Robin, myself, we're always, moving around, trying to kind of do everything ourselves. And a great point in the studio is when we started just like making these really big hires that because we were a large enough studio, we were able to talk to these people who have done this before or who have like who know things that we don't, bring them on, and then just like look to them to help us take the studio to the next level.
Mm.
And that's sort of how we've been level jumping as a studio, growing larger and larger to, more and more revenue, more and more EBITDA, more and more just presence in the industry. All of this is because we've grown it to a point where we can do it ourselves and brought someone on to grow us to the next level and brought a few people on to grow us to the next level. And that's just how we grew as a studio. So that's just the most invaluable advice I think I wish I knew out the gate. We could have done what we've done in 11 years and probably five.
Right.
Been a great journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, to sum that up, really, you've the importance of finding the right team members to help you take to the next level and building that team is maybe the most important thing you've discovered.
Exactly. And you can't just do that as a startup. You can't say, let me just get the best of the best talent here. You have to build the studio and the story of the studio and the presence and the quality of work so that these other people who are really big out in the industry like can look at you and say, wow, okay, you're doing something different and cool here. I want to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
you've got to build this gravitational pull for the studio, both for clients, but also for talent. And then you have to just grow that and then bring somebody on to grow bigger and bigger and bigger as
Mm.
you go.
All right, cool. So the final question, what would you do every day if you had all the money in the world? What would bring you deep joy?
I think I would do this. I know it's cliche to say that, but like I love absolutely everything about this.
Yeah.
Um, all the money in the world, I wouldn't be afraid to just lose tons of money every day. So I would probably take really big chances on ideas that we have here of our own. But like we're all so happy where we are here, to be
Mm.
honest. I like the next 11 years, we're very optimistic around and excited about. We see opportunity everywhere. So
Mm.
right now we're right where we want to be. Maybe I do it from a yacht. I don't know.
Well, as Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. It sounds like you're doing exactly that, and you are leaning into what you are most curious about, and you're on your path, which is great to hear, Justin. And thank you very much for sharing your insights. It's been an absolute blast. I've enjoyed it, love it, and I learn so much just by hearing stories, from smart, creative people all around the world. And thank you very much for sharing your time and insights.
Of course, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great talk.
Thank you, Justin.